Hi, I'm Dr. John with the Voyage Clinics Podcast, family physician, and we have this podcast for the community, just to educate and love and grow and be awesome. Today, Dani is joining me, and I'm excited to have her. We're going to talk a little bit about home birth and about birthing. Dani is a doula. Dani, introduce yourself. Tell us about you. Tell us about your journey, and just tell us about you.
I'm Dani. I'm a doula. I've been a doula for like a year and a half now. I have 5 kids. I started like a blogging Instagram where I wanted to help moms build confidence and live their passions and be their authentic selves. And that kind of, because of my experiences and my passion to help women, it kind of led me into the doula space.
Cool. Tell me about your movement in empowering women. Tell me about that.
So I learned from my birth experiences how women could get like lost in motherhood. I learned from being a mom and I think it was by the time I had our 3rd kid that I just kind of felt lost in motherhood, and I didn't know what I enjoyed anymore. I was really excited about being a mom and I loved it. But at some point, my husband was like, what do you want to watch tonight? Or what do you want to listen to on the radio? And I was like, I don't know. Part of me was like burnout from making decisions all day and helping little tiny humans. And then the other part of me just I'd ignored the things that I liked and allowed my kids to take over, whatever shows they liked, the songs they liked. And their happiness made me feel happy. And it was kind of like keeping this calm in the house that I thought I was trying to do, but then I wasn't feeling as much peace myself. So when someone pointed that out, like about being a peacemaker, if you're not feeling peace, then it's really not working towards being a peacemaker. You're just ignoring yourself and allowing other people to get what they want. So I worked for a while with a mentor. He helped me like get my voice back and see that I'm important. I kind of developed this belief system growing up that I wasn't important. And so that carried on into my motherhood where everything else came before me. And I feel like a lot of women relate to this, where they give to everybody else and then they're the last ones to get what they need. And I remember after working with him, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to do something for me. And how often do I want to do this? And so I thought, once a week, that's a good amount of time to just get away and do my own thing. And it took many times before I didn't feel the tension and the pull to like be home, or like there's sometimes that my husband, and he's always been amazing about saying, go have your own time, like hang out with friends or go get your own food, like by yourself where it's quiet. But I'd always kind of feel bad about leaving the family or taking my own time away. And I remember my coach said, well, what do you want? And my initial thought was, I can't say what I want. That's selfish, isn't it? And he was like, no, you have to know what you want. And so that kind of started this journey of realizing what belief systems I developed through my life and through motherhood, and to finally stand up for myself, because I was the only one putting myself in this position. My husband wanted me to have experiences and love and to fill my cup. But I was the one that was kind of stopping me because my mental state of what is a mother supposed to do? You're supposed to give yourself to your kids and your family. So I kind of went through this journey of finding myself again, being Dani and being a mother, and gaining this confidence back. Like it's okay to do the things that I like and take care of my children.
Dani, that's so cool. I know that resonates with so many people, especially so many mothers. I'm a family doc. I help mamas all the time. I delivered babies for 10 years, and I still take care of a lot of newborns and a lot of mamas and a lot of things. And it is a very common thing. And I think part of it is indoctrination, like definitely some of those dialogues are just like not true. Like you should put everybody else's needs above your own, and you should be in the kitchen doing all this stuff for everyone else and wait and be the last one to eat. And you know what I mean? And there's all these like kind of traditional wonkiness things for sure. But also like even just physiologically, like pregnancy is a sacrifice. It's massive on you. You sacrifice your time, your sleep, your body, you're like, you're different parts of your body. Like
Yeah,
you're like
totally.
the hardware that's like necessary to feed these babies. And so there's lots of self-deprecation going on. And when you go down a self-deprecation path, even just a little ways, it can sometimes be that losing yourself space. And how beautiful it is to see that you've kind of evolved through that and kind of rediscovered, hey, I do have wants. And it is important that I say, hey, I want to do this thing. My wife has a very similar journey, and we have 4 kids and stuff, and culturally very much like everyone else's needs are above her own. And for years I was like your husband, like, honey, hey, what do you want to do? Let's do something you want to do. I'm very good at asserting my wants. I'm like, hey, I want to go mushroom foraging. We're going to go mushroom foraging. And some people are like, no, I don't want to, blah, blah. I'm like, well, it's what Dad wants, so we're going to do it. But she doesn't do that very much. And so I wanted to help her find her voice and her desire and her space. And I think it's a beautiful evolution for women to go through, and men too, frankly. Sometimes men get into those states where they're not, Well, that's really cool. What a really beautiful journey. How did that take you into, So I just want to unpack that a little bit more. So in your space now, you're probably helping a lot of people with the same journey that you went through. Are you kind of coaching them? Are you just kind of like creating this space to like help women kind of talk it through? Do you have like groups or anything? Like if somebody wants to kind of connect with you in that space?
Yeah, so I'm working on a coaching certification now so that I can reach more women and speak to more broader audiences. Starting doula work, I kind of paused the coaching aspect, but I know that's like a very integral part of doula work and to help women and for them to help find their voice. So I'm still working on that. And going to births, I think every time I go to a birth, everything drops, and then I have to pick up the things that are important. And so some things get left behind and some things I carry on with. So it's been awesome to see what I pick back up. But coaching is a part of that where I have experienced it in my own life and I see such benefit from it that it's something that I'm going to be finishing to help women in that space.
Dani, why do you think, so this is just interesting, why do you think you go through that kind of drop everything and then pick up certain things and some things are left behind after a delivery? Like, what is that?
That's a good question. I think because as a doula, we give so much of our attention and our energy. And even if my clients, oftentimes I'm doing counter pressure for my clients. So physically it's really demanding.
Really demanding, yeah.
So it almost takes everything out of you. And so the recovery days, it's a few days for me to fully recover. So it kind of, I think everything's dropped because I have to be able to focus on my healing and my health to be able to serve my family after that or serve more women. I haven't been in a situation where I've had back-to-back births, thank goodness, because I don't know exactly how that would go, but because my husband has flexibility with his job and how we work things with the family, we tell our kids, we really communicate to them, if I've been to a birth, that, okay, the next few days are going to be really gentle days where we're thinking of nourishment and sleep and just kind of slowing down a little bit.
I think in life, when we go through one of these resets where we just drop everything, really hyper focus, and then pick up the more of the essentials, maybe leave behind some of the non-essentials. I think it's a beautiful calibration and recalibration process. Right?
I agree. Yeah.
And I delivered babies for a long time, and I remember as a med student, I was unsure what I wanted to do with my career in med school. I was, because you can do med school, you can go to all kinds of, subspecialties of all kinds. And I liked all of my rotations. I would be with an orthopedic surgeon. I was like, this is so cool. I could totally do this. I'd be with the pediatrician. I'm like, wow, this is incredible. I definitely want to be a pediatrician. I remember when I was doing OB, we delivered a baby, and I remember I delivered this first baby, and afterwards I was just like, wow, that was just, it was amazing. It was sacred. It was beautiful. And I was just sitting there just kind of processing. And I remember the old surgeon, the old OB doc says, Dr. Sanders, how you feeling? I was like, oh, this is incredible. Like, oh, that goes away after you do about 2,000 of these.
Oh my
And I was like, okay, all right, well, it's still cool. But one thing I noticed, and then after that, I did family medicine with doing OB and everything, and practiced in a small town for a long time. And I noticed during the delivery, all the facades, all of the uncertainty, all of the posturing. We do a lot of wonky things in our societies, right? Different people have different whatevers, and it's totally fine. But there's a couple times in life, and I've dealt a fair amount of time in both these times. There's a couple times in life where it's all gone. You're rubbed as raw as you can be, down to the base core of your existence, and it's like the most purest part of your existence on the earth. And when that baby is delivered, that is that moment. Dad's crying, mom's crying, baby's there, baby's fussing. I'm crying, nurse is crying. Like everybody in the room is just, this is a somber moment of really sacred beautifulness. And you hold that space, and it's just neat. It's just so neat that it recalibrates your existence. Mm-hmm. This is what's important right here. All the other things that I thought were important are probably not as important as this thing.
Yeah, so, I totally agree.
So neat. Yeah.
That was kind of my first experience going to a birth. Mm-hmm. I thought I'd be doing mostly postpartum work because you can set your schedule, you set appointments, and helping moms through postpartum was something I still feel really passionate about. And one of my postpartum clients was having a home birth, and I was like, she didn't have a doula, she just had her midwifery team. And I was like, I could be there if you want, like free of charge, just having the experience to see if there's something that I eventually would love to do. And so I went to her birth. She was excited to have me there, and I went to her home birth, and it was how you described it, pure and sacred and awe-inspiring to see women like in this raw primal power. And then like, it's a miracle to watch a baby be born. Yep. So once I had that first experience, I was like, I have to do more births, even how crazy it can be and unpredictable and like strenuous on the body for the doula and like the support team. I knew I had to do more of that because of the feeling it gave me, and just to see women's power was so awesome, so incredible.
Yeah, that's really cool. Shauna and I have had many discussions about women power, and I think it's wonderful. It's beautiful, and I'm a huge advocate for that space. And she talks about the hero's journey. In fact, we did a podcast on this not long ago. And she has a master's in English, and she's very gregarious, and she's well-spoken, and she's super smart, smarter than me, times two. But she talks about the hero's journey, and she nerds out about it quite a bit. And birth is the total hero's journey, right? Like even going down into the despair and the, all of it. Mm-hmm. And I vision like doula work, and help me with this a little bit, because I'd like to understand better the doula space. I've delivered a whole bunch of babies, some with doulas, some with not, some with midwives, some with not, some with just nurses and me, and it's all beautiful. It's all beautiful. Mm-hmm. And so I want to better understand the doula space. I kind of envision it as like Frodo and Samwise, and that's probably very masculine. That's a bad example, but it just came to mind. Samwise is just there with Frodo, helping him carry this heavy burden, and getting there, and Lord of the Rings or whatever. But I don't know. I think just having an advocate, a partner, someone that's just with you to kind of apply counter pressure when things get hard, and do that. But tell us more about the journey of a doula and how you kind of help these women on their journey through childbirth. Yeah,
I love seeing different doulas in different aspects, because as a doula, I'm connected with many other doulas in the community. I help run a doula support group. It's been a free group for a while that we've had in collaboration with a birth center, Utah Birth Suites, in Provo.
Okay.
So I initially started it so that I could practice myself and have continued education. Because after going to a first few volunteer births, I wanted to have connection with other doulas and learn from people that were really good at what they do. So being able to see and hear about different doulas' experiences was super helpful. But I love how doulas are support people. Like, it's a constant support person that they have throughout their whole journey. So depending on where our clients have their babies or what their team looks like, I've seen some OBs and midwives that are super involved and want to be there for a lot of the time and like do hands-on care and support. And that's like so wonderful to see as a doula, seeing this woman being surrounded by so much support. And of course, there are other situations where the OB or midwife is kind of in and out. And then having the doula there, it's just that constant support that they have through pregnancy, their labor and birth, and in postpartum. So I know from my personal experience, of course, having my husband there, that's a constant support of someone that knows me. But I wanted him to stay in that husband role, to support me, like be at my face, giving me words of wisdom, like me holding on to his arm, very intimate things that would increase oxytocin and build our relationship as a couple. So the support, my doula was so helpful at giving extra support that I needed with counter pressure and comfort measures, and maybe seeing, okay, we've been in this position for like an hour. Do you want to change things up, or how are you feeling? Because when a woman's in labor, they're very much in that primal brain where they're not thinking outside of anything but one contraction to the next, one breath at a time. So it's nice for someone to know exactly what the woman wants with her birth goals, and then to see from an overall perspective, okay, here are some things that can help. I know the last birth I was at, the mom, she knew she wanted an epidural and she was okay with getting induced, but she still wanted to have a support person that knew more of the things that she wanted, and she didn't want to put that pressure on her husband. And he was a great support to her. But even like when she was feeling nauseous, grabbing peppermint and having her smell that, and that was such a relief. Or doing the counter pressure, and she was like, why did no one tell me how good counter pressure was? Because she wanted to get 2 4 centimeters, 0 to 4 centimeters without the epidural, just so that it wouldn't stall labor.
Sure.
So us doing counter pressure, and I taped up some different affirmations in the room. So when she was in between contractions, she would just look at them and like read them to herself.
Cool.
She was like, why did no one tell me how helpful this was? Because this was her second baby. So she kind of had something to compare to her first. And she said her experience, even though she knew she wanted the medical interventions and pain management, it was still so helpful for her to have a doula there to support her.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's super cool. I think understanding the birth process and then calibrating with their desires, and then kind of executing in a really reasonable way, like with the family, that's super cool. That is so cool.
And it's a little harder to build trust with like the nurses that you can have incredible nurses, but then you meet them that day. So it's hard to have that built trust when you're just kind of meeting someone. So it's nice to have to have a doula there to support you that you've built trust with. And oftentimes doulas, I'm sure there are some doulas that aren't great. Of course, that's in every field, but I feel like most doulas are on the same page with informed consent and choice, where they know they're not a medical provider, so they can't make any decisions or persuade them to make any decisions. But it's more about giving them all the options so that they feel confident about the decision that they're making.
I think that's great clarification for our patients, in the community, just to understand, like, doulas aren't delivering your babies, right?
Yeah.
They're just helping your journey, right? They're with you every step of the way, kind of smoothing out the rough spots and talking it through. And that's really cool. That's really cool. It's like having an advocate in those spaces.
Yeah, for sure.
Transition is like, birth is hard because you said it, like, folks get into like a very like primal state where they're just struggling, and it's hard to think clearly. It's hard to make good choices, and so if they have an intention maybe to have a natural birth, like And then during transition where everyone is going to cave, like they, you know what I mean? Like they have someone to kind of remind them, hey, you're doing great. Here's some words of affirmation. Here's our goal. You're doing awesome. You're right next to delivering a baby. This is great. Yeah. You're actually we knew we would be here. This is transition. And it's okay. It's dark. It's hard. And let's just keep going. Right.
Yeah. That's definitely a big pivotal part of the labor experience. I remember with my doula, with our last baby, it just felt really hard. And with my, I've had all different kind of birth experiences. So, but my fourth baby was a lot. It felt, I don't know if easy is the right word, but compared to all the births, it was like the best. It was a water birth, great birth experience, and she came pretty fast. And so with my fifth, I was like, oh, I've done this 4 times already. It's my last baby. I want it to be perfect. And it wasn't quite what I expected. And he had shoulder dystocia, so he needed a little more care coming out. And I had to roar him out, which I didn't do as much with my other babies. But my doula, I sent her my birth goals and exactly what I wanted from this birth. And she pulled it up while I was in between transition and the pushing and read them back to me and reminded me and gave me those beautiful words that gave me a little more energy to keep going to the end till baby being born. And that was so helpful. I'll never forget that moment.
Do you remember some of those words? Do you remember that at all?
I remember that I wanted an unmedicated birth. I wanted it to be peaceful and calm, which it wasn't quite like that, but that using my voice in that way helped me use my voice in other parts of my life. But I can't remember all that I wrote down.
No, I don't expect you, but I think it's neat that as long as there's a mantra there's a reasonable mantra. I think it's beautiful. Have you seen birth plans is there such thing as a less good birth plan versus a better birth plan? Like how do you guide somebody in kind of sculpting a birth plan?
Yeah. That's a great question. I usually give them a template to kind of look over. Sometimes it's easier to do like the bullet point birth plan, but when they're thinking overall their birth plan, I think the more specific they are, the better it is for the whole team to be on the same page. So when I'm helping them put together their birth plan, I love for them to be as specific and then to ask certain questions about different things that they maybe haven't considered yet. But I love when they're super specific because then there's no question about exactly what they want because it's right in front of us. And I think that helps the nurses too. I've seen some formatted in like paragraphs, and I think it's harder. Maybe it's not, but I feel like it's harder for the nurses to kind of look over it in a quicker way if it's like written in these full paragraphs than if it's like bullet point.
Yeah.
But having a birth plan is so important because it helps get everybody on the same page with what the mother wants.
That's cool. I've delivered many babies, and some of them have birth plans, some of them don't. And I'm okay either way. Like from my standpoint, and the nurses often in the hospitals that they're often, I don't know. I think I like what you're saying about like helping them navigate their birth in a more beautiful way. But I think there's a misconception in the hospitals that a birth plan is high maintenance, and that there's all these egos that we have to like now balance, right? Like the ego of the doula who helped them craft this birth plan. That's unreasonable. And so that's why I asked, because I've seen birth plans that are unreasonable. And I often sit with my mamas and say, show me your birth plan. This is cool. And we go through it, and then we just talk it through. We're just like, well, okay, this is great. And I love your preferences, but let's just keep this one thing. Okay. There's one thing that me and you are always going to just say over and over and over again. And it's healthy mama, healthy baby. Okay. And that's my job, right? My job in all this sequence is to adhere to your desires. Yes. but also to keep you and baby alive, because
Right.
this is the valley of the shadow of death. I mean, you can 30 seconds from now, baby can die or mama can die. I mean, it is a scary time, or it's beautiful and awesome. Like majority of the time, it's awesome and beautiful. And so when I'm dealing with birth plan, birth plans and things, and I always talk it through. I like it. I think it's wonderful, but I've seen them where it becomes headbutting contests, right? And I don't want that, right? Like, I don't know if it's safe to burn incense in the hospital. Right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Let's talk through that.
Yeah.
You can have crystals on every windowsill. That's totally great, and however you want to roll with that. But again, let's just say the same thing over and over. If your birth plan is just healthy mama, healthy baby, I've had a lot of mamas come in and I'm like, hey, what's your birth plan? And they say, well, I don't know, doc. What's your birth plan? I'm like, healthy mama, healthy baby. She'd give me a high five, and then that's it. And it was a beautiful prenatal, postnatal delivery. Everything was wonderful. And I think more than the details of the birth plan, more important is the resonance of your heart and where your heart is. And are you fussy about a nuance over here that really doesn't matter, right? Whether it's this or that. Or are you really focused at a really positive, healthy, peaceful, good outcome? Keeping it kind of broad, specific broad, but also manifesting the love and the peace and the joy. And maybe, I don't know, I'm curious about this process of birth plan creation because I've seen some that are like, holy cow, there's like 50 pages of all this nuance that nobody can read through, and it'll be hard for me. And it's going to put you in a headbutting match with the nurses and stuff. And I've seen a lot of mamas get so focused on the journey that they forget, let's focus on this, right?
Yeah.
Healthy mama, healthy baby. And the journey is beautiful, but it is so unpredictable. If there's one thing that's super unpredictable, it is this phase.
Well, and I think that's another thing that I talk to my mamas about is creating a birth plan and then like a backup, because like you said, it's so unpredictable that there could be a need for Pitocin or a C-section. So having those, like being able to think through those other options is super important, because I agree, some moms get so caught up on just one specific birth plan, and then when things change, it kind of gives them a downward spiral. So being able to talk through, like you said, all the options, or talk through their birth plan, but as a doula, talk through different options that they might have. Of course, we don't want to focus on, if we're wanting a unmedicated birth, we don't want to focus and put our energy and attention into a C-section. We want to focus on the things that we do want, but being aware and being educated is super important too.
I love that. And that degree of neuroplasticity or flexibility is super, super important. And it's important for mamas, because if they're feeling like a failure because they had an epidural or a failure because they went to C-section, it increases cortisol, stress, anxiety, and that's not good for baby. It's not good for mama. And so being like, these are my preferences, but I'm okay with some flexibility here. And if things go X, Y, Z south directions and we have to, transfer, or we have to go to the hospital, whatever, it is okay. And I almost take them through that process, that journey mentally before they even start their labor process. Okay, now we're going to play out the scenario where XYZ happens, baby's not progressing, we've got a shoulder dystocia, can't fix it with these different situations, and now we're getting transferred to the hospital. How do you feel? And like give them those really anxious moments and help them like just mentally go through them, so that when it actually happens, if it does actually happen, hopefully it doesn't, they're cooler, their cortisol levels are better, better outcomes for baby and mama. That's good stuff. Yeah,
that communication I think is so important that you're talking about.
I've been in situations where it's an elbow match, right? And a midwife is elbowing the doctor or elbowing somebody else, and the husband's elbowing this person and the nurses, and it's just this big old mess. And it sounds like that's not what you're going for. Yeah, for sure. But building those relationships with those nurses, if I could give like papas and doulas and midwives like one little pearl in the hospitals, it is to love the nurses and build relationship there. And it is they do this a gazillion times a year, and they have protocols and standards and guidelines that they have to adhere to by law, by state things to keep mamas and babies safe and healthy, and be reasonably flexible with some of them and just get to know them more. That's a good piece. Like, just get to know the nurses. The docs, hopefully the person delivering the baby, you will have already met with a whole bunch. Right? Prenatally, I know I met with my mamas like before they even conceived. And then after, and then 9 months, we got to know each other really well.
I'd love to hear any other tips or takes that you have from a doctor's perspective on working with doulas and how we can better have that good working relationship. Yeah.
I think the key is the nurses. If you're getting along well with my nursing staff and not causing stress there, then we're all going to win. Because the docs at the time of delivery, we have labor nurses, right? And our nurses labor with our patients in the hospitals for a long time. And we'll show up, we'll pop in. Hey, how's it going? Okay, we're about 2 centimeters or 4. Go home, come back at 4. Oh, you're 4 centimeters. Okay, let's hang tight and let's see how you do, and let's get the nurses involved. Even that space, like knowing when to bring them to the hospital. Like, like if you're 1 centimeter at home, hang tight. And that's beautiful doula work, is just like, hey, let's just reassure you that this is normal labor and it's going to be hard and we're going to get to 4 centimeters or close to, further along than 1 centimeter at home. I would always tell my mom, as I'd say, labor at home as long as you can, long as you can, labor at home, and come in when you're ready, and then we'll take care of your baby and stuff. And so that was a key thing, and just getting along well with the nurses, and then advocating for, I think that's a tricky space, right? Like advocating for a client, but then also like the doc is trying to keep everybody safe. And are there unethical situations in medicine? Yeah, but I would say, man, 90% more, these doctors, nurse midwives or whatever, are very moral and very ethical, and they're working very hard to do really great things. And so they're not like, no, we're going to drop a C-section 100% of the time. They're not, they're not trying to do silly things 99% of the time. So I would say avoid those kind of assumptions, because sometimes there's a whole bunch of negative stigma around hospitals, right? And so when I was delivering in a hospital, I'm like, hey, I'm like a midwife in the hospital. Let's just do that. Let's have a really groovy experience. But again, safe mama, safe baby. And I've seen things go sideways where within like a minute, I was able to get baby out, right? Because we needed to, because that baby was very, very compromised. And so my wife had 3 of our 4 kids at home, and with midwives, I don't think we ever had a doula, so this is a new learning experience for me to see how a doula can complement kind of that whole scenario. But yeah, just in short, I think just get along good with the nurses and the communicate openly. I would say be clear about the underlying mantra of safe mama, safe baby. That's our number one goal here, guys. Like let's just make this more of a, an emotional journey that's beautiful for everybody. And the less elbow throwing and headbutting we could do, the less stress and cortisol and in the room, and that's going to be really good for everybody. Yeah,
the last birth I attended there was an OB that came, and he talked to the mama, and then I came like a couple hours after she'd been in the hospital. And so after he talked to them and he was leaving, he looked at me and he said, "Thank you for being here." And that made all the difference. It helped me really like lower any walls that I was like worried about. Because I think some doulas, they aren't sure. And I'm sure it goes both ways. Like the doctor isn't sure what kind of doula they're getting, or being around, and the doula is the same way, where she's like, what kind of doctor are we working with? So I think it's like so helpful. And the nurse said that something similar to me too. And I was like, your staff is so amazing. Like it makes me feel so good to feel like, and it just built that good working relationship. Totally. And the birth was incredible. Yeah. Like it was so phenomenal how we all were working together.
Totally. So then I would say do the reverse of that too. So that was a seasoned, very skilled OB and a skilled nurse to know that laying good relationship down with you is important. Same thing with these doulas.
Yeah.
If you're coming into a situation where you're not sure who the nurse is, the doctor, just find a space, a time where you can just introduce yourself to the doc. Yeah. Often when the doc comes in, talks to the patient, does all these things, they're leaving, and then maybe just follow them out and say, "Hi, doc, I'm Dani. I'm the doula here. Just want to introduce myself. I'm just here to support this whole thing. I'll be offering counter pressure. Anything I can do to help you, just let me know. Like, I'll be just helping them in their journey." And just
I love that.
Just like smooth that out, introduce yourself. Because there is, right? Like we've been in situations where it's, the doc's a jerk or the doula's kind of overly whatever. And so smoothing that out like the doc and the nurse did would be awesome in both directions.
Yeah, I love that.
Super smart. Cool. What else? Any other tips or tricks that you have for childbirth or the doula space? And, how would I know if I should recommend a doula or I'm, as a client, maybe looking for a doula? Like, give us a little bit of that.
Yeah. Well, as a doula, I'm sure it sounds biased, but coming from being the mom in that situation, having the doula, I always recommend finding a doula that you connect with. And it just fills in all the spots. Like if it's almost like that foam that you like put into cracks and crevices, it just like fills everything in with so much cushion and love and warmth. When you really find the right one that's for you. And I always recommend when I interview with women, I tell them like no pressure. I don't get offended at all because I know how important it is to find the right doula. It's your sacred space. You have to be so comfortable with them. So if I'm not the right one, I could recommend other doulas or just like making it so it doesn't ever feel like no pressure at all. But once they find the right doula for them, it just kind of fills in all those spaces of comfort. And I feel like that's how women have always given birth. They've been surrounded by the wise women in the community, and they've had that extra support, extra love. And that's my goal as a doula, is to help the woman feel that, like feel something through her birth experience, no matter how wild or crazy or unpredictable it will be, for her to be surrounded. And it's so interesting to see some clients, like half of them love their mom to be in there with them. And then half are like, please don't let my mom in here. It's so overwhelming. Or like their mother-in-law, they're like, I could never have. So
do you damage control like that as well as the doula?
Sometimes.
Because I'm telling you as a doc, I would love that.
Yeah.
I'm like, please run damage control out there. We got 10 family members that they don't want in the room.
Yeah, that is part of like our job. And I haven't had to do it too much, because either the mom is like, for sure she wants her mom there or not at all. But I think for the women that still want that feminine care, that motherly support, but doesn't necessarily want their mom in there, a doula is so cool. Either way, again, the last birth I was at, her mom was there, an amazing support. And so it was me and her mom and her husband all doing counter pressure at the same time.
Wow.
And she was like crying and like felt so supported and so held. So I would always recommend women having that doula support, because I feel like our biology is made to be surrounded by other women. Like women are supposed to be there helping each other. And so doulas are such a great option to have that motherly feminine support that I feel like women need when they're having their babies.
That's so cool. I love it. What is the cost? I mean, for our audience, what's the price point for the average doula? Do you know?
It's so interesting here in Utah. I heard it's like different from other places. Some are as low as like $500 to $800. That's a very more lower end, up to like $2,000, depending on the experience of the doula, and there could be other offerings. Some doulas are also student midwives or pelvic floor therapists. Like a lot of times the ones that are a little more higher end have other trainings that are very beneficial to the mom. So I feel like it can range anywhere between like $500 to $2,000.
Okay.
But I feel like a good average is $1,000 to $1,500 for a doula.
Okay.
When I do my packages, I'm there for 3 prenatal visits. I like to do 3 because it really helps build the trust with the client and helps me to know their preferences during labor. So the more I can not interrupt them and kind of know what they want. And sometimes it's trial and error to kind of figure out what is working. And I always tell the mom, there's like no one thing that's going to help the whole time during labor. Mm-hmm. So we'll oftentimes change things up. But the more I can build that relationship with the mom, the better the experience is. Yeah. So we have 3 prenatal visits, labor and birth support, and staying up to 1 to 2 hours after, like that golden hour. I love to see like baby latch and make sure lactation support is there and that her and her partner has had a meal after having their baby, and then a prenatal or a postpartum visit after. Mm-hmm. And then I also offer postpartum care because that's a huge part that's a big part that women don't think about as much is the postpartum care.
I think when we say postpartum care, we should differentiate that. So,
okay.
So by care, your support and like, what does that look like? Because postpartum care is like medical postpartum care as well, right? So like there's some medical things and emotional things that we kind of look at as from postpartum as well. Mm-hmm. As a doula, postpartum, are you just like supporting their journey, breastfeeding, kind of talking? Like, I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Yeah. So with postpartum support, I usually do 8 postpartum visits in their home, and they last about 3 hours each. So my main goal is to take off any stress that the mom has and allow her to get sleep, because sleep deprivation will lead to a lot of other complications. Yeah. And sleep is the most powerful tool you can use when you're healing in the postpartum period.
That's so cool. It is the essence of care. Like what you're providing is caring for that person. Mm-hmm. And it's not healthcare.
Right.
But it is healthcare. I don't know how to explain it. It's like healthy care. Like
yeah. Holistic.
But it's not like a licensed, like, whatever, but you're really in there supporting them and caring for them.
Mm-hmm. Making nourishing meals. Yeah. Like if there's other siblings, taking care of that.
I kind of want that.
Yeah. I know. I love ending each visit with a foot massage or hand massage.
Wow.
I know. I love it. I love spoiling the moms. Mm-hmm. And really, it's just exactly what they need. They need to feel that they don't have to worry about anything but them and baby and healing. They just need to hydrate, eat nourishing foods, and sleep, and making sure baby is taken care of. That's all they should be worrying about in postpartum. So I love having those visits and making sure she's well taken care of and supported, because it's those first 40 days that's going to lay the groundwork for the rest of their motherhood journey. So it's a big deal to have that support. And I feel like oftentimes women are very focused on the birth, which is so good. But also that's something we go over in one of our prenatal visits is postpartum planning and having something in place and like what to expect. Because a lot of times women are like, they are healing. And then at 2 weeks, they're like, okay, let's do something. Let's go out of the house. And that's usually when women have a little more energy, and then they overexert themselves and then they start bleeding more because they've reopened the wound from the placenta. Yeah. And so having someone to help guide them in the postpartum period and know when to like send, like, here are some referrals, or just ask them how they're doing and have a sense. Again, we're not medical providers, but having that sense of, oh, you're having postpartum depression, or like we can't diagnose that, but giving recommendations and kind of seeing some little signs that we can say, because I feel like women have that 6-week visit and then we're like, what do we do now? And it's really hard to navigate. Yeah. And going through that myself, it's like, what do I just go back to like my family doctor, or like, what do I do now? What should I be looking for?
Yeah, there's a gap, isn't there? So my experience with OB is very, very different than the average person's, because I was the pediatrician too. So so I would deliver the baby, and then 2 days later, 1 or 2 days later, depending on what the situation was, I would see the baby, see the mama, 1 week, I would see the baby, see the mama. 2 weeks, see the baby, see the mama. 4 weeks, and then 6 and 8 weeks. And so there was a lot of support and connection and screening for depression. We screened for postpartum depression at all those visits. In OB, like if they're just the OBGYN, I think they, they do a delivery, and then if it's a C-section, they'll take out staples in 5 days. Often, sometimes they'll take them out before they leave the hospital, actually in a couple days, put on steri strips. But then they'll want to look at that incision like in 5 days or so, in a week or so. And then it's like a 6-8 week follow-up after that. There's a huge gap.
Yeah.
So yeah, I see in Chinese. So I spent some time in Taiwan. I lived there for a few years, and the mamas would go through this. They call it 过月子, which is like it's approximately a month. It's like 30 or 40 days of like just pampering and spoiling, and like they have this whole thing. And it sounds like what you're offering is like you're offering the like service to these mamas, which is really great because they get to really bond and really kind of anyway, it's a really, really neat thing. And there's guidelines like only certain people can come in the house, very peaceful, no disruptions, XYZ things, and you can only eat certain things. And there's all these little stipulations in their culture, which is really cool.
Yeah, that's why I love what you're doing with Voyage Clinic. And you're on my referral list for my clients because I've seen how you're bridging that gap with women that need the care. Like after so many months having a baby, like testing hormones and seeing where they are and where they're depleted, having that pediatric care, like you're like the one-stop shop for women. And that's why I'm so excited about like our connection and meeting you, because women need that support and like chiropractic care. I'm really excited about everything you're doing because I feel like it does help bridge that gap for the care that women need and the screenings. And
I think there's just so much, there's a paucity of actual care. Like in the true meaning of the word care, where you are caring for someone, healthcare is lacking in that space. Like it's a quick 5-minute visit. There's no touching. There's no relationship. There's no real connection. People feel treated like a number or an object sometimes. And, and so really our core value is just care. Like how can we just redistill that one core value? And as I'm listening to your story as a doula, you are bringing the care into healthcare because sometimes it's lacking, honestly, whether it's a midwife or whether it's a doc or whether it's a clinic or a hospital. It can feel very sterile. It can feel very foreign, very, very uncomfortable. And so to me, I think that the foamy insulation thing was a good idea. You just spray it in the thing and it expands and fills in all the beautiful cracks of woman power goodness. And so, no, I think it's wonderful. And thank you so much. Dani, how can people get a hold of you? Tell us about that.
Awesome. I have my doula page is Dani the Doula. I'm also creating a community for doulas and for women. So it's a doula collaborative, and on one end it's going to be a doula collaborative, and on the other side it's going to be building a community for women to bridge that gap. So it's called Wise Women Collective Full Circle Care. And I'm really passionate about, again, helping women through all these different aspects of their life. We're going to have so many amazing doulas that are part of the team that are going to be helping women through fertility, pregnancy, labor and delivery, and postpartum. And then we're going to have group support where women can continue to get together and lean on each other. And I think that's one of the hard parts is when you go through labor and birth, sometimes you feel isolated because you're the only one. The woman that's having the baby is the only one that can go get her baby and bring them earthside. So sometimes it feels a little isolating, and there's so many. It's the biggest hormone drop that a woman experiences in her life is right after she has a baby. So there's a lot of rediscovery, and when we isolate ourselves, it makes mental health worse. And so just having that connection with other women and hearing their experiences and saying, okay, I'm not the only one experiencing anxiety or depression or OCD. And it can really help women linking arms and feeling comfortable to, if they eventually need extra care and extra medical support, then they'll have that because they had the courage to speak up and to see, okay, I actually do need extra support. So this will be launching at the beginning of June, so I'm working on it now, really, really hard to get it out there. And I feel so excited about it. So you can find me at Dani the Doula on Instagram or Wise Women Doula Collective. That's our website. And then on Instagram and social media to be Wise Women Doulas. That's
awesome. Thank you for all your work and for the community. It's wonderful. It's cool to collaborate with people who share the same values as I do. And thanks for being a host on the show. Appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
This was so fun.